Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Moving Spotlight podcast. I am pumped about today's show, Corbin. I gotta say, I am really, really pumped. How are you doing? Are you doing well after your board game and drinking weekend?
Oh yeah, I'm doing good. I'm exhausted because apparently drinking's very exexhausting. But yeah, I had a great time. I'm rested and not rested. I'm tired, but feel good to not do anything for 4 days.
Did you get your orc to level 14?
I got my orc to level 14. It's so weird that you guessed that perfectly.
I know nothing about those board games. Some of them I do know. No, I love it. Hey, I wanted to ask you, Corbin, what is your favorite comedy movie? Because we're gonna be talking about comedy later today. What's in your what's your
comedy? For some reason, the first movie, and this is weird, is Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. Like this, it's like a horror film comedy. Like I don't know why I love that movie so much, but it cracks me up, and they do all the tropes of horror movies so well. And I'm not even a big horror fan. I don't know why it like tickles me so much, but that's definitely like top of my list of favorite comedy movies because I think it's very clever in how they do it.
That is a good one. I did not expect that from you. That's a really interesting one too. Very like specific.
Yeah, it's such a weird movie. Like it's just all around. And I also love I forget, I'm blanking on that actor's name, but the blonde guy who's also in Firefly and all that.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but he's so good. Yeah. Our guest, he's gonna definitely jump in.
Go ahead, unmute for a second, Brian. This never happens. Go ahead. What's his name? I knew Brian.
You're talking about Alan Tudyk.
I am.
Alan Tudyk.
Yes.
Okay, now mute yourself again.
Get out of here, Brian. Jeez, unprofessional.
I told you, Corbin, he'd know stuff like that. That's
he's so
Brian's
good.
specialty.
Yes.
He's so good. Wait, any others that pop in your brain?
Any others?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of drawing a blank on like other favorite comedies. I just watched the other day Dodgeball again, which was like cracking me up a little bit because that's a good one. Any Ben Stiller movie is really good.
God, that guy goes for it.
Yeah, he really does.
Just in it.
Every time, and they're kind of the same character, but not at all. Like I don't know how he's just Ben Stiller. He's just so good at what he does. But what about you? What's your favorite comedy?
You know, one of my favorites is still a classic for me. One of the reasons I moved out to LA is I love Swingers, and I know it's not a straight up comedy, but
I've
like Vince
seen
Vaughn.
Swingers.
What? That is a sin around me, Corbin. That movie, Vince Vaughn cracks me up. Like just there's something about his delivery and his pace. And I just, when he's in stuff, whether it's like Old School or, Wedding Crashers, like, I don't know, there's something he just his
Dodgeball.
Dodgeball. Yes. Dodgeball. I mean, he's kind of more the straight man in that, but yes. There is some funny stuff. But Swingers is like a classic one for me. And then I'm trying to think of some other ones that are more recent. I think that, oh man, what are some other good ones that really make me laugh? God, I guess Swingers comes up, and then I think for a while it was definitely Will Ferrell. Anything he touched, like Anchorman and all that was like cracking
just
me
gold.
up. Yeah, and then I think it kind of evolves, and then it's like for me, then it kind of went to like the Apatow guys, kind of became, and I feel like it kind of changes over time, and I feel like I could read our guest's mind, and he's like saying like Mr. Show, even though that's not something I would say. I mean, it feels like his world, but it's not a movie either. But yeah, no, I think I love anytime you can find a good comedy.
I think that's a good point though. I think TV show comedies are way better than TV show movies in my opinion right now. Like Mr. Show, obviously it's a little bit older now, but that's a great example of a good comedy. It's a clever comedy. I think a lot of current comedies now are just like, here's a funny joke every 3 seconds rather than like an actually like thought out piece, I guess.
Yeah. And I think, and another one that's not as big as well known, I love Game Night. Jason Bateman to me is like so good. There's something about him that's like what he does is so specific and subtle, but like just so funny that, the way he responds, it's so hard to do, and I think he does it so well.
Yeah. So. Oh, absolutely.
Great, love it. Well, I want to shift here and hear what our guest has to say. I'm sure he's got some opinions on this topic for sure. So I want to welcome a longtime friend of mine. He's an improviser. He's a teacher. He's a director. Let's welcome Brian James O'Connell to the show. Hey, Brian.
Hey
guys. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Great
you guys. Yeah, you guys are good luck. Literally, while I was waiting for you guys to finish the intro, I got an audition for from my agent. So I was like, "Yeah,
wow,
let's go."
Nice.
I'm confirming. Look at that.
You guys got the magic touch.
I love
it. Yeah, I love all those comedy movies, and it's funny that you mentioned the Ben Stiller thing, is because Ben Stiller has really like three three sort of eras. He originally was meant to be the next Tom Cruise. That's why on the Ben Stiller show he did so many of those Tom Cruise impressions, because they had him set up to be like sort of a young dramatic act. Like he was like, we found the next Tom Cruise. So if you watch a movie called Next of Kin, which is hillbillies versus Chicago mobsters, it stars Patrick Swayze. Patrick Swayze is a hillbilly cop, but a Chicago police detective at the same time. His wife is Helen Hunt. His two brothers are Liam Neeson and Bill Paxton. Adam Baldwin's in it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Del Close is the mob lawyer. He's in like the first scene. Wow. Of course he's smoking because he could never stop smoking for a second. I think my character should smoke. Of course you do, Del. But yeah, and so he's just playing. Ben Stiller plays like the hotshot, egotistical son of the mob boss who's sort of being groomed to take over the mob, and Adam Baldwin's like sort of the enforcer who doesn't. And so he is just playing it straight. He's not doing any of the comedy stuff. And then you have the section that you guys are talking about, like, where he has sort of two comedy go-tos. It's either the something about Mary, like, oh geez, I don't know, or the nobody makes me, taste my own blood. If you want to see an early version of that character from Dodgeball, you watch a movie called Heavyweights that my boy Matt Zabielski from Film School is in. It's a very funny. It's a fat camp summer kid movie, like snobs versus slobs kind of thing, and he runs it as like sort of a former heavy kid who's now like all jacked up, and he's literally doing sort of like a demo version of the character he's going to play in Dodgeball.
Oh wow!
And now he's in sort of his grown-up, serious. I could do Apatow stuff too,
yeah. Wait, Brian, I want to.
Of Walter Mitty. Yeah.
Oh wait, I want to take a heavy turn really quick already,
Sure.
is I don't know if we need to go this deep right away. But a movie like Heavyweights, which I remember hearing him talk about that kind of being the precursor. But do you think a movie like that, and I haven't seen it, but where then all of a sudden you're dealing with fat camp and then you put it through the lens of 2022, can that comedy still hold up if the timing worked then, but now you're like, it kind of makes you go maybe a little bit?
Because it's snobs versus slobs, and the slobs are the heroes. It's all the comedy. There's not really that much comedy that's punching down.
Gotcha.
It's about them going, find the beauty inside of yourself, and those guys who are making fun of you for the weight are the bad people.
Gotcha.
I think you'd watch that movie now. Like people are so much more open to that kind of stuff now too, because you have movies like Peanut Butter Falcon, where back in the day when Crispin Glover was making a movie with all autistic people, or like some of the stuff like Gummo that what's his name was making, the guy that wrote Kids, his second movie, Gummo. Yes. Where that stuff, people are like, oh, that's so inappropriate. Now it's celebrated. They're like, oh man, that's so nice. I was thinking about, actually yesterday, I was thinking about Rain Man. I was just like, Dustin Hoffman would get raked over the coals for taking a role like that now. They'd be like, you couldn't find any autistic actors, and like my nephew's autistic, so I'm like, yeah, good point. Yeah, you think about that now, where it's sort of that performativeness of like, definitely Wapner, Hot Water Bird Baby, all that stuff. You're like, and then going back to Ben Stiller, that whole like, you never go full R word, right?
From Tropic Thunder.
From Tropic Thunder. Yeah. Which my boy, you remember Jason Axon from Tiger Pants, right? I really loved that movie.
Yeah.
And I was really excited about it after it came out. And I was like, I went and saw it in the theater. I was like, oh, this is great. This is funny. And he goes, oh, you mean the Three Amigos? And I was just like, oh, it is. It's totally the Three Amigos. I thought it was this like really broad original comedies. Enough of this reboot stuff. You are right. It's just the Three Amigos.
I feel like I always say when someone says that, of like when people talk about like Avatar being Fern Gully, and even though I haven't done the research, it's like I've looked at the dotted points. You're like, oh yeah, there is a lot that's like very like the same, along the same line.
Yeah, no, someone did a nice thing where they found they dug up the original one-page treatment for Disney's Pocahontas and just crossed out the names and replaced it with the names from Avatar, the character names from Avatar. Same movie, the exact same movie. Which it makes sense, because when you spend $1 billion on shooting a movie, you need to make the money back. So you need to have you need to have sort of a simple story that is universally told. The fact for me is that they're in post-production on 2 and 3. They are currently shooting 4 and 5, and it's not the premiere date of 5 is 2028. The first one came out in 2009. That guy has just owned Sam Worthington's adult life. The idea of someone walking the red carpet and talking about the same movie for 20 years, and people are like, well, Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, Indiana Jones. Yeah. but Avatar. So
yeah,
what
that one?
the old joke is too, like, when you make a sequel, it's always like, well, we'll send them to Hawaii, right? Like, must we go tropical?
Yes.
But since they started tropical, what questions are left unanswered in number 5? Number 5.
That's true.
Yeah, they go to space.
Yeah, they go to space. Yeah, they'll shoot it up there.
Space. Leprechaun in space. That's the one that really.
That's where it is.
So Brian, it's funny. That's one of the things I told Corbin before we met is like, Brian's got one of those brains that, like, if you talk about, like, I use it as an example, music, it's like he'll know who the drummer was for Van Halen and whatever in a certain year or something like that. Like the stuff that I can't know nothing about. Yeah. And I know this because we met doing improv back in the day.
Right.
And has your brain always worked like that, Brian, where like the details, the names, the things like that? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Unfortunately, although my girlfriend did point out to me the other day that I forgot I was supposed to drive her to the doctor. She was like, I don't want to ever hear about your memory again. I'm like, you're right. No, you're right. I am getting older now. It's starting to wane. But yeah, the weird minutia that like sort of lives in my brain. Like, it's funny that you mentioned like, the Van Halen thing, because I literally just made an Alec John Such reference in my class yesterday. And they're like, who is Alec John Such? I'm like, I mean, he's, RIP, but, he's the original bass player for Bon Jovi. And the line was, because I'm always constantly doing improv scenes by myself. I'm always sort of working that muscle. The line was like, oh, I was a very private brunch with Leslie Stahl from 60 Minutes, General Colin Powell, and Alec John Such, the original bass player from Bon Jovi. And he was thrilling us with a fascinating story about he went to the Congo to turn German sign language. It loses something in the translation, the retailing. But listen to when Coco the gorilla says, I am a jelly donut, she absolutely means it. That's the direct line.
I love it.
And they were like, that's all crazy, but who is Alec John Such?
But what? Yeah.
But what? So
I want to go back to Brian when we met. What do you remember about the early days of us at IO and just improv and kind of? So were you introduced to that in college? I feel like, was it North Carolina School? No.
Yeah, I went to the North Carolina School of the Arts. There was I knew about short form from Whose Line Is It Anyway, like everybody knows. Yep. But that was still just the British version. I was just like, oh, that's just something that happens over there. That's not something that's available regularly to people, because I'm from a small town in North Carolina, High Point, North Carolina, the furniture capital of the world, also AKA Little Chicago, because we're the 239th largest city in America, but we're currently number 34 in murders per capita. Oh, wow. So yeah, my parents are from Chicago, so when they moved there, like my mom's a rad tech, so when she went to the hospital to like interview of like, hey, do you guys have any job openings for any radiological technologists? And she was like, and the doctor was like, oh, Diane, don't you know that this is Little Chicago? And she was like, oh no, we made the horrible decision.
I do have expertise.
Yeah. And so I went to film school in Winston-Salem at the North Carolina School of the Arts. So I went all of 10 minutes away. And there were some famous, I went there during what is known as the golden years. Class of 98 through class of 2002 is just all heavy hitters. And every once in a while I'm telling a story to my like improv students as like an example of like a type of scene, and then they have to be like, wait, you were at a party with Kenny Powers, the guitar player from Thursday, and the Falcon from the Marvel series. I'm like, oh, I guess I was. I was. Yeah, that was me, Anthony Mackie, Steve Padula, and Danny McBride. Yeah, sorry. That sounded like name dropping. I didn't mean it. I was trying to give you an example. But there was an improv group there that they just put together themselves and just did a couple of shows, and that was Brett Gelman, who you guys probably know from Stranger Things.
Of course, he's great.
Yeah, of course. And then John Daly, who they have a two-person Cracked Out, their hip hop group. A guy named Vadim Newquist and Alex Nold. And Alex Nold like played with Built to Spill, like he was their cello player. Like, yeah, huge guys. But so they just did a couple like in the quad on their own because Brett's from Chicago and he was like, oh, I really want to do improv comedy. I miss it. Let's put together a group. They had a great team. The name of that, this is the memory again. This is 95, 96. I'm sorry. The name of their improv group was The Wings of Larry Bird.
That's a good one.
Great team name. I just found out 2 weeks ago that actually BTS is translated. The original name of BTS in Korean, when you translate it to English, is Bulletproof Boy Scouts.
Really?
The actual name of BTS.
That's also sick.
Which is a great name. Yeah.
And just for those that don't know, Corbin, I don't know if you've been part of it. Naming an improv team is like a huge deal to
worst.
people in it.
Oh,
It's the
so
worst
much.
outside, but when you're deciding it, it's like the heaviest burden for some reason. And it's many emails, it's many discussions, right?
If I had spent half as much time on my career as I have spent on improv team names. John and I were when we were on Happy Time Rainbow Bunny Squad, we were also in a side project group that was the two of us, Rachel Grissom and Mike Bellavia, and that was called the Bud Dwyer Experience. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Everybody Google Bud Dwyer and strap in. So yeah, I dated a girl in college, Rebecca Brown, aka Rebecca Zanicki now, because she's married and got a bunch of kids. And she was the one that introduced me to iOS and long form improv because we stayed friendly afterwards. And she was like, "Hey, do you want to come see my team?" Which was Tiger Pants. And I said, "Yeah, when is it?" She's like, 11 o'clock on a Sunday night. I was like, "I am broke. I don't have HBO. So yeah, I'm coming."
Sure, I'm in.
I can't watch The Sopranos and 6 Feet Under, so I'll be there. And then they just happened to have the best show they ever had, and I was like, I have to do this, and then I was hooked from that moment on. That was January 19th, 2003, and that week is I call BOC's best week ever. The 21st, So I'm trying to figure out. So 21st is when. No, so the 15th, January 15th is when my movie Bloodsucking Bastards, or our movie, I should say. Premiered at was the opening night premiere at Slam Dance. The 17th, the 15th is my sister's is the Hudson flight. My sister was on the Miracle the Hudson flight, the one that
that's Sully. No,
yeah, Sully Sullenberger.
Sully Sullenberger.
She was on the cover of USA Today. If you see the picture of the plane with the frogman, and then it's the life raft with the 3 white blonde ladies, that's my sister on the far right, Lisa.
No,
Whoa.
Yeah. 17th is my parents' wedding anniversary. 19th is the first time I ever saw long form improv comedy, and the 21st was when Bloodsucking Bastards premiered at the Slam Dance. So like that week I call BOC's best week ever.
Wow.
Yeah. My sister's alive, I'm alive, and I've got a career. Yay!
That's great.
So, yeah.
What do you recommend for somebody who's wanting, like, for that week, wanting to get into improv? Like, what do you think is like a good starting point for somebody who is completely scared of it, new to it, all the things?
Yeah, I feel for most part, like a lot of us see it in the first time, like Paul Valancourt, which was my level 1 teacher. I don't know if he was your level 1 teacher, John.
I think he was. I definitely had Paul. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Paul said that he saw an improv show, I think it's Second City in Chicago, and while he was watching it, said out loud, "I'm going to do this for the rest of my life." And I feel like that's a lot of people have that sort of reaction to it, but people also see it and go like, "Oh, that's terrifying. That's horrible." I get it. And I almost always say like, well, go to a couple different theaters and watch their shows, specifically their house shows, and like see what their vibe is like. And if that's the kind of stuff that you enjoy watching, then you should probably take your first class there, because it's already stuff that you sort of relate to. And then I would usually say like, come to me first, because I try and keep my finger on the pulse of everything. And it's like, so if someone was going to the, like I'm one of the co-founders along with Miles Strath and a few other people, one of the co-founders of the Pack Theater in LA. We are very lucky and fortunate that we have the teachers that we do, but our level 1 teacher is Neil Dondade, who is just an absolute ball of rainbow and sunshines and puppies and kittens and a box of fluffy ducks in human form and is genuine about it. So I would say, yeah, go to someone like that. Go to someone like Paul or Neil or Jamie Moyer, someone who's just alive with pleasure for improv, and have that be your first experience. Versus like, unfortunately, sometimes in our straight acting world, as you guys probably all know, there sometimes can be a different energy of like, some of you will not be actors. Some of you only think you will be actors. Which one of you is completely up to me? Like, it's that sort of, I don't know if you know the old Phil Hartman sketch where he came back and hosted SNL and he played the New York acting teacher, all in black with a beret.
What did he do?
He held his hands up, like his big catchphrase was like, he held his palms out and he goes, "This is something," and they would turn his hands around so it's facing back of his hand. "This is nothing. This is something. This is nothing." Sean, and it'd be like Will Ferrell. "Sean, what are you working?" And then Sean would like stand up real quick, because they all treating him like this guru. They're like, "Sean, what are you working on right now?" He's like, "I'm working on A Whole New World from Aladdin." "Sing it to me, go." "I can show you." "Stop. Who are you right now?" "I'm Aladdin." "Are you?" Sit down. Let me tell you a story. A very good friend of mine and a former student, David Hasselhoff, calls me from the set of Baywatch. He says he's having a problem relating to the character who has just been eaten by a shark. I get the red eye to Los Angeles. I go up to David on set. And I go, this is something. This is nothing. This is something. He nailed the scene, and they're all like, "Oh, brilliant!" I'm like, "Oh, if you are an actor watching this sketch, this is savage. How good it is.
How good it is." With what you're saying there, and with Corbin's question, one of the things I was thinking about, I think. With that space you're talking about, one of the great things about improv that I've experienced is that when everyone starts it, they suck at it. Everyone is garbage. Yeah. They're just terrible. I mean, even someone who's pretty funny, it's super rare that anyone's like, everyone's, so you're all bad together. And so that creates a great energy where like when two people have a good scene, which can be kind of lightning in a bottle, and you're like, oh my God, like, look at, like, it is possible. And it kind of happened and we want more of that. And it gets like, it's like it's like if you watch a great show or something, but like when you're first starting off, I think that's one of the interesting things, finding that place that also has what you're talking about with teachers, but then also that community where you're like, great, we want to get together outside of class and work on this, and we want to fail together, and we want to succeed together. We want to support when we have a good scene, when we have a bad scene, and laugh about it. And I think for me, that was one of the cool things that I remember about our group at IO, was there was definitely this energy of like, let's get in there, let's practice, let's fall apart, let's try to fix it. You know what I mean? And that
we didn't have a choice. Those were Miles's terms. Like I tell all my students all the time, I'm like, there is no such thing as good or bad improvisers or good or bad improv. There's improv and more successful improvisers. There's improvisers and more experienced improvisers. Yeah. It is. I was like, I'd never give a note to a student that basically translates into, well, if you had found improv 7 years earlier, like, you can't control. I was 27. Heather Ann Campbell started doing improv when she was 15. Furious about that, because she's always going to be better than me, but also like she had that experience. Like she was on a house Herald team in IO Chicago, and then after the show, everybody would be like, oh, let's go out to the bar. And she's like, sorry guys, I gotta go home and go to bed. I gotta get up early for work. And what she meant was like, I have to go home and do my homework and go to high school tomorrow. And she like hid it for forever, because she was terrified that for sure that they would find out her real age and they would like kick her off her house team, which would be like devastating at the time. But yeah, now when you see like Miles, we didn't have a choice, because Miles was like, we brought him out of retirement from coaching because he got tired of groups breaking up. And so he'd just be like, I want 2-year commitments. I want twice a week rehearsals, 2 hours a piece, and you have to get together a third time outside of those rehearsals and classes to just hang out, have a potluck, watch the Maltese Falcon together, just so you can know film noir. Like, just the better you know each other off stage, the better you know on stage. We had to fight to get Bella Via in because, well, 3 different groups approached Miles, and he said, here are the 10 people I think are worthy of my training, which just lopped off about 65% of the people that were asking him to be a coach, which is brutal to be told to your face, not you, but you. And then Bella Via had taken level 5 off. He hadn't taken level 4 with Miles yet, because he made a commitment to the other people in his second city class that they would all graduate together, and there was a conflict. And so we begged him. We said, look, he's going to be in your level 4 next term. Add him to the team now. After 8 weeks, if you hate him in class, you can get rid of him. And he was like, done. And then Ruby, you came later when we were losing people. And that was like a no brainer for Miles. Miles was like, no, Ruby's good. Like, I'm mad, which is like high praise indeed from the old man, right? No, that tracks. It would make sense. You guys are a great team. Of course you are. I taught you. It makes sense you would want to add Ruby. He's worthy of my coaching, right?
So you mentioned Miles Strath. Who are like some other teachers who are some teachers that you looked up to, Brian? Like when you were coming through, I mean,
dude, I got real lucky coming through levels. I only had one teacher where I was like, who shall remain unnamed. Obviously, when we go off, I will tell you the real name. Not good for my career wise to start talking trash. He's fine. He's a fine person. It was just it was oil and water when it came to his teaching style and my learning style back then. And also I was a wild man. I was 27 and I was definitely a pirate. I got really lucky that my teachers were like Paul Valancourt, Scott Robinson, Bob Dassey, Miles Strath, and Craig Kukowski, which is just a murderer's row who's who of the improvisers. Yeah. And then around that time too is when the Armando cast was really, really, like, the Armando cast was Brian Stack, who's one of the head writers for Stephen Colbert, and was the head writer of Conan before that. It's the only job he would ever leave Conan for, because he and Stephen are best friends. So it's like, oh yeah, that's the one job. David Keckner, Mike Coleman, Neil Flynn. Just like, I mean, when half of the family, the legendary Improv Chicago team, when half of the family is in that Armando cast, and you got people like Karen Grachi and Sarah G, just like, you watch that, and then like, oh, Mitch Rouse is in town, and so is Joel Murray and Susan Messing, so they're going to sit in. Next week, Pasquazi's going to be in town. He's auditioning for something. So it was just, every week you went, you were just like, this is incredible. And also, holy shit, there's a famous person here this night.
You're told, and I'm pretty sure it was Monday nights, right? Wasn't it Monday nights?
Back then it was Monday nights, and it was standing room only.
So I remember. So what's interesting, I remember, and you know, like I said, my brain is mush, too much drinking, but Brian remembers a lot. Which is, I remember Monday being the Armando Diaz show, which was amazing, standing room only.
Yep.
And Saturday was Beer Shark Mice, which is another
correct
amazing thing. And then Sunday was Dasariski, which was some of those teachers we just talked about. As far as I can remember.
Yeah, and then they moved to Thursdays. And then they moved to Thursdays. And Thursdays became a
big night. But
yeah, that was the thing. I know, again too, Sharna, brilliant businesswoman that she is. She was like, when Beer Shark did one of their mini retirements, they're like, we're done. This is our last show. And we were like, oh, we'll wait 3 months, 6 months. Then Pete Holney would like, I want to perform again. And then he would just browbeat the rest of the guys into saying yes. Holney is the shortest guy on that team, but absolutely the kingpin. Like he runs that shit. Come on, what else are you doing on a Saturday, Neil? Just sitting on home. Come out and do a show. And she moved Armando from Mondays to Saturdays. I'm like, you are turning Mondays into a ghost town. Why would you do that? Mondays is not anything to compete against, especially in Los Angeles, the entertainment capital of the world. It's like, no, this Monday is free money. You have free money. Yeah. Well, don't worry, we'll figure out something else to do. Yeah, didn't listen. I was like, okay, whatever.
I think it's funny. I'm just thinking about too, Brian, with what and Corbin, it almost comes back to what you originally said. You could tell Brian and myself, it was like being freshmen in high school and seeing the varsity players. And they're just like, these are the guys and gals that I want to play like, you know, I want to be as smart and as good. And I think that was like part of the thing is like, if you really want to be good at improv, and if you really like, you got to kind of fall in love with that, and you got to fall in love with like the shows you see, you know, and that's what you know, you work through those times when you're still figuring it out and trying to, you know.
Yeah, I likened it to like, I would always say it's like watching the '96 Bulls play a game, and then you get to hang out in the locker room with them. They go, hey, what's up, John? Good to see you, man. Like, oh, excuse me, buddy. Hey, oh, BOC, what's going on? I'm like, Scottie Pippen knows my name. Like, great. And then so on and so forth. I've been very lucky to be doing this. Yeah, March 1st, 2004 is when we all graduated. We had our last level 6 show. I remember that because we all went to Jesse Blank's house for the big party, and that was the night of the Oscars where the Return of the King just swept everything. So it's very easy to remember that day. And so March 1st of next year will make it 20 years on the dot. And so I've been very fortunate to be around for a long time. And I have people say that to me now, like, I just remember when I was an intern, and my friend Travis Lincoln Cox, who's on Storm Chaser, a really, really good improv trio, along with Andrew Pish and Anatasha Blakely. He was like, I was an intern. I remember you came in. You were like, hey, what's up, TLC? I was like, BOC knows my name, and he's got a nickname, and I've got a nickname, and because my name Travis Lincoln Cox and TLC. Maybe I belong here now, right? It's always that. You never know. It's just a good rule of thumb in our careers to just be kind to people, because you never know what that. First of all, it's just good to be kind to people, but also you never know what impact and like how, like, I was thinking about quitting improv, and then I was sitting next to Brian and Miles at the bar, and they were talking about, you know, improv theory and like watching SportsCenter, and then they asked me, like, they turned and looked at me and they said, like, your show tonight, you had that great scene, and then that like got me through the next 5 years. Like, you never know what kind of effect you're having on people in that way. So
yeah,
it's importante.
I was helping out teach a high school class at UCLA earlier today, which was really cool. And so jealous. It was like 10, 14, 15, 16-year-olds from around the country. And it was interesting because I was talking a lot about commercials and things like that, and them kind of seeing their eyes open and them kind of learn a little bit about what it's about and meet people that are actually doing it, because that's something I remember when I was in Wisconsin is I knew no one that was doing I mean, actually in Wisconsin there was Comedy Sports, but I would go and see that show and I didn't know anyone doing Comedy Sports. I loved seeing it, but like just being exposed to like you're saying, of like hanging out with people or seeing people up on stage. And I think one of the other cool things, I would say about an improv place, that if people are looking at that classes or whatever, I love places where you get up on stage and do it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. There's some places where it's like, what's on stage is really good, but it takes a long, long, long time to get there. And I think there's value in that, but there's also value in just like getting on stage. You know what I'm saying, Brian? Like as quick as you can, and just like figuring it out of there too. Like that's a neat part of it.
Yeah. If there's very limited opportunities for community stuff like jams or anything like that, that's kind of a mini red flag, sort of like, it's the gatekeeping aspect of it. Gatekeeping and then like purity tests. There are a lot of purity tests in improv, and I just despise them. I don't think there's any such thing as cheating in improv. The only way it could be cheating is if we wrote it out ahead of time. Well, now it's sketch comedy. It ceases to be improv. So any place that sort of institutional, and also you and I were there during the golden years, like the big improv boom. Like we were so lucky to be there around that time, especially right going into, because like UCB didn't come to LA until 2006, and then you had people. I remember hearing stories of like anything. We're actors. We want to take new classes. We want to get, we've heard good things about this. And so that very first year, I'm very jealous because again, I didn't take classes at UCB because I was the bar manager at IO West, and I knew Sharna would fire me because she'd be like, what are people saying? Because everything is competition. What are people saying if my teachers are taking classes over there? I'm like, because that's how acting works. You keep taking classes to learn stuff. You maniac. So I would hear stories of people like they're level 1 at UCB because it was brand new in 2006.
Yeah.
It's everyone in there. It's not, you were talking before about like, hey, we're all sucking at the first. No one sucked in those classes. They were all 5 to 10 year veterans.
Well, that's
It's Peter Fluane, Nick Armstrong, like they're all there in the same class together. You're just like, and especially the people that like move from New York to LA, specifically the way that people move from Chicago to LA and then would find iOS as their home. So like I would go and see ASCAT, which is their version of sort of the Armando. The only difference is that there would be anybody could be a monologist instead of just the one person. I think the first ASCAT I ever saw there was all the UCB4. So it's Matt Walsh, Matt Besser, Ian Roberts, and Amy Poehler. What's his name? He's like famous indie record producer. The name will come to me. Was the monologist, and then everybody else was like someone I had seen on television. Like it was like crazy. And then people that weren't on television yet, but like Jordan Peele was part of the cast, and he had just started working on his Obama impression. He was like, something might come out of this. I'm like, no, it sounds good, man. It sounds good. Yeah, maybe he'll get the nomination. Maybe you can get a couple guest spots doing an Obama impression. Later, Wyatt Cenac was part of that. So now the improv institution, the big institutions, with Second City being owned by venture capitalists and IO being owned by real estate guys, and then a management company owns UCB, and it's just like, well, are there really going to be those sort of community things, or is this all just like everything else? Is this like intellectual property?
So how did the Pack Theater come about, Brian?
So he went and started something called the Miles Strath Workshop, where that was literally just him using very early social media, very early MySpace, very early Facebook, just going, I'm teaching. If I'm around, and he would just like mention it to people in passing. I'm renting out a space at the complex on Theater Row in Santa Monica Boulevard. So there would be times where he'd be teaching 8-week classes to 4 people. And those same 4 people over and over again.
Jeez.
And then slowly but surely started building and building. And then he brought me on to start teaching forms. And then he brought in like Heather to start teaching sketch. And then Heather brought in Eric Moneypenny because they were both on the midnight show together at UCB. And then Eric brought in Sam Brown from The Whitest Kids You Know to teach sketch. And then we got a couple more people on our side, on the improv side. And eventually Miles called me. He was like, we're going to start doing shows. It's going to be on Tuesday nights from 8 to 11. You're running it. And I was like, okay. I was directing a really good house sketch team at IO at the time. And we met on Tuesday nights. And literally he's the only man in the world who had called me up. And otherwise I'd be like, I'm unavailable. I'm sorry. That's the only night. So I was hated to lose that sketch team because of how great they were. But also they understood. They knew I was Miles Jr. They were like, oh no, the old man called you. You got to go. And then we went from 1 night of shows, 2 nights of shows to 3 nights of shows. to eventually 4. And then Miles was like, we need to become a 7-night theater, but there are too many people working too hard for it to be called. This is why he's one of the most honest, ethical, decent human beings on the planet. Is why I love him. I'm honored to be his friend. He was like, we shouldn't call them. We were trying to force it. We're like, no, everyone refers to it as MSW, Miles Strath Workshop. It's cool. It has a cachet. Just we were begging, like, just keep the name. He's like, no, there's too many people working too hard to have it named after me. We need to come up with a new name. And we went through like 250 names before we settled on the pack. And so everyone thinks it's a wolf logo, and we kind of do ourselves a disservice because sort of one of our internal hashtags is the strength of the wolf as a pack, because Ali Farnakian gave us one of those, like he gave us a frame like Rudyard Kipling, the Law of the Jungle poem, because he started the People's Improv Theater in New York, and had been on the family with Miles, and like one of his closest friends, the Golden Bear, Ali Farnakian's name. He goes by Ali Reza if you look him up on IMDb. I just saw him in an old episode of Law and Order SVU the other day playing a doctor. But it's a hyena, so like we're a pack of hyenas because we're dangerous, but also we're laughing. And if you see a bunch of us together, like look out, because Miles always liked the idea of an improv team being like a street gang, and like you hang out together, you pack John remembers being on Buddy Squad, like we had chips on our shoulder. We were like, you want do you guys Buddy Squad, do you guys mind going first tonight, because we have you want us to go first? You want to follow us? Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Yeah, we would do a show, and then we would pass them as they're playing our outro music right before they would play the intro music. The house managers going to introduce the next team, and I'll freely admit it, I was a jerk. I'd look the next team dead in the eye, go, follow that. Good luck with that.
Your turn.
Did you hear that? That's a lot of loud applause right now.
Yeah, don't lose that energy. Don't lose those laughs. That's awesome.
No, I'm sure you'll be great. I'm sure you'll be great. And to be perfectly honest, I'm still kind of like that, because with Dr. God, my group, when the 5 of us are together and on our A game, I will put us up against anybody, probably except for Beer Shark Mice. Beer Shark Mice, when those 6 guys are together, they're greatest team on the planet. But like Dr. God holds her own. We're pretty good.
We're pretty good.
Somebody tried to do that once where I won't say the name of the team, but like, because they're friends of mine, but someone at the pack once was like, well, such and such is the best improv team at the pack theater. They only draw 7 people. So like, I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. Neutral stage anywhere in the world, all 5 of Dr. God versus all 4 of them, and we will drown them in their own blood. We will destroy them. What you're saying to me right now is objectively false. So we're going to start this conversation over. They're drawing 7 people is an argument in pro me, not pro you, right? of what your argument is. So,
Brian, can you touch on? I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Can you just touch on? We talked about forms, and I'm just curious for people
Sure.
out there if we're kind of mentioning the Herald, like Deconstruction. I don't know, Laurent. I don't know. I'm just thinking of like ones that. But like, can you just kind of give just like a very like a somewhat brief synopsis of like what the Herald is for people that don't know, or Deconstruction, just so they have some idea of like.
For sure.
We talk about short form versus long form, which is
Long form. Long form is just basically the idea of making this look like it's done on purpose. The original definition of the Herald was a pleasing assortment of scenes, monologues, and games, and then over time it sort of became the thing it was. I usually tell people that they already recognize the Herald because they've seen sitcoms and they've listened to 3-minute pop songs. You have an opening, you have a verse, you have a chorus, you have another verse, you have some sort of bridge, and then you have maybe a third verse and or outro chorus, and there you go. The Herald is an organic opening, 3 scenes, group game, second beats of those 3 scenes, forward and backward in time, or with one character but a new character, another sort of group game, and then the third ones. And it's the same thing with sitcoms. You have a cold open, you have the first act, you have your commercial break, group game, a bunch of related things that don't seem related, but the advertisers specifically want their products during this show because they think the people that watch this show will buy these products. And then you come back from commercial break, you got your second act, you have another commercial break, then you have your third act, and then you have a tag, right? It's kind of like same thing with an hour long.
Yeah.
The deconstruction is, I usually say, like, if the Herald is algebra, the deconstruction is calculus. But once you have sort of a passing understanding of calculus, then everything else becomes geometry. Everything just becomes colors and shapes. I usually tell people too that if you've never even seen improv, because I'm known as the decon guy, I'm a deconstruction guy. John and I, that's how we got started doing Bunny Squad. I've been doing it for 20 years. My nickname is Johnny Decon Seed because I travel everywhere, because basically the only people that teach decon are me and Miles is way too expensive because not for anything else. It's because he has a wife and two small children, and he and his wife, not to be jerks, he and his wife sat down one day and said, okay, what would I have to make to leave for a long weekend to go to Kansas City and teach the deconstruction or teach position play, which is the other thing he invented. And they reached a dollar amount and said, that's worth it. Me being, because she has a full-time job and she's a realtor or works for a real estate company. So if I'm going to be alone by myself all weekend with two small children, as I'm sure you guys understand how difficult that is, and I'm going to be a solo parent, this is how much money you have to make it worthwhile to our family, to our household. And when he tells people that, they go, it's ridiculous. He goes, you're right. I absolutely should not be asking for that amount of money. It is a ludicrous amount of money. I'm just telling you, these are what the facts are for my wife to allow me to leave house and have her do all the cooking and cleaning, taking care of the two kids, which we also teach from, they homeschool one of them. So it's like, that's it. And so then it's me. So I'm the guy that goes everywhere. And so like, yeah, but if you just have a basic, if people have never even seen a long form improv show before and they see a decon by 10 minutes in, they're an immediate expert. They get it because people know patterns, especially now when improv is it's so part of the lexicon. People, like regular people, just know improv from knowing Tina Fey and knowing Amy Poehler and such and such got their background. Like Adam McKay won an Oscar and he was on The Family. He'll create the deconstruction. And there was an interview I found with him in the New York Times talking about his movies. And there's a paragraph where they're talking about the deconstruction. Like that would have never happened 20 years ago when you and I were coming up. So it's not as daunting as maybe people think it is. And you've probably seen more improv than you do. The only thing I hate right now is that because improvisers are the only artists in the world that shit on their own art form. Again, apologies for the bad language, but it makes me mad. I went to an art school. I went to one of the best film schools in the country that also happened to have one of the best drama schools, one of the best dance schools, one of the best music schools. If you went to the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, School of Music, they have a 99% placement rate. You are playing in someone's orchestra right now, someone's national orchestra. If you went to the School of Dance, you are in someone's national ballet company. If you go to Broadway, it's School of the Arts, Juilliard, School of the Arts. One of my roommates, Brian Abraham, is playing Hagrid and originated the role of Hagrid in The Cursed Child on Broadway right now. There's improv on Broadway right now. Improv just won a Tony. My boy Anthony Vinzali, because he's on Freestyle Love Supreme with Lin-Manuel Miranda and all those guys. But improvisers love to be like, it's just improv, it's stupid. I mean, come to my show or not, like it's dumb. Why do we have to get so serious about, like, why do we have to learn a form? Like, I just want to do improv for improv's sake. And that starts to, like, as those people get more and more successful, and then that starts to like creep into their creative endeavors that now other people are seeing. So like there's a whole character, the TV show You, which I refuse to watch on principle because the lead character, who is a murderous sociopath, goes and takes improv classes because that's according to the show canon, that's the only place a sociopath can blend in without anybody going, that guy's being weird. Right? Like Tina Fey has a flashback in 30 Rock of her wearing an IO shirt, saying like her worst nightmare if she loses, like, what would you do if you didn't have the girly show? And they do the, flashback, and it's her in an IO shirt teaching long form improv at an old folks home. And then she goes, ugh! Like we're the only people that crap on our own art form. And it's infuriating to me. Like I don't know how many SNL sketches have been in the last 5 years alone of like, hey, everybody, we're the improviders. I'm like, every single one of you are able to write this sketch because you took improv classes. Yeah. And far be it for me, sorry that I got off on a rant, but like, I'm just going to go out on a limb that said, maybe because you took those improv classes and learned those skills is one of the reasons why you're on the premier sketch show in the history of comedy. But can you not see the straight line from A to B? Like, please stop crapping on this so there can be more
I'm even
people.
thinking, Brian, for a long time in commercial auditions, which I helped run a lot of castings for.
Yes.
We used to have to, because if you improvised, they used to have a rule. If you improvised, they had to pay you. So we'd always say, make it your own, which was pretty much
have fun with it.
Which was pretty much for improvising. But they changed that, so now you can say improvise. But the point is, I've seen so much great improv and so many people that have booked jobs because of wonderful improv, and it is such a talent, it's such a skill.
Yeah.
And that's even, in a kind of a shorter form. But
Especially
I totally,
with commercials, you have to have improv on your resume now. Your agent, any agent will be like, "Where's your improv? Where's your improv? Gotta have it."
One of the reasons that I tell people, Brian, is because especially if you're doing a commercial, let's say you're an actor and you want to do commercials, is like they know they have 8 hours to do like these 3 lines of dialogue or less. So they're going to want to see some variety because they're going to be working on it for 8 hours, right? So if you got to get through 10 pages of dialogue, you don't have time for improv. You're like, we got to get through all this dialogue. But on a commercial, they have time.
I just booked one where it's it's internet only. It's a 15-second spot. I can't say the company yet, but I can when it comes out, obviously. There's just 3 of us. It is literally like 3 lines. And I probably said it 1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
And to the point where like, they liked it a whole lot. And they're just like, I was like, yeah, they're like, oh, thanks. At one point they were all talking like, and then like the client was like, it's not you, Brian, it's us. We're trying to, I'm like, yeah, you were trying to find new ways for me to say something because I had done all the stuff that you wanted the way you wanted it. Yeah. And I don't think without my improv training and continued improv training, like keeping that muscle well-defined, that would have been a nightmare day for me. And thankfully there was 3 people on it, and one of the other people in it was a guy that used to be my doorman at IO. So when I saw his name on I was like, oh yeah, cool. That nice. Yeah,
Brian, I had an audition at the Pacific Palisades Theater for an Arthur Miller play, and this is when I was heavy into.
You talking about Trevor? You told the story on the Trevor episode.
Oh yeah, I saw it. Yeah, so I was just
improvise. Arthur Miller.
So there are times not to improvise.
Corbin had the was it Corbin? I couldn't tell if it was Corbin or Trevor. He was like, I think it's done. I think Miller's fine. Done. He's complete, which is so funny because one of the famous stories of all time was Del, who, like, let's be honest, Del is the father of modern long form improv, but also he was a racist, sexist, misogynistic, junkie witch, which we have to give credit where credit is due, but also we have to call out where call out is due. He would say things like women and black people aren't funny and mean it, right? So, but famously he won. What's it in Chicago? It's like a TED. Like, what's their version of an Oscar or an Emmy or a Tony? It's like a TED or something like that
in Chicago
for theater.
Know. Okay,
yeah, in Chicago, that's their big thing. He won. Yeah. He won that award for best supporting for playing Polonius, and famously in that, there's one time where his assistant has to flick because they did like a modernized version of Hamlet.
The Jeff Award.
The Jefferson Awards.
Yeah,
the Jeff.
Yep.
So he has to light his cigarette, and the guy has to light it without looking at him. And Del famously improvised, "Light thy bick again, young," and like hailed him by his character name. And then like famously, the guy who wrote the review of it said he was in the bathroom afterwards and was listening to other people going like, who didn't know that was improvised. They thought that was part of the play. And he was like. Very impressive to improvise the bard and have people go. Also, to give more credit to Rebecca Brown, who got me to improv. She used to do an improvised show. My favorite 2 things that she ever did in improv when she was in New York, but way back in the day, mid to late 90s, she used to do a Shakespeare in the parking lot. So you've heard of Shakespeare in the Park, but then they did it Shakespeare in the parking lot of a grocery store in New York. So they would improvise when things would happen. So like when the garbage truck came through, they all bowed to the garbage god and like improvised that stuff. Cool. And then also she was an improv troupe where the guy came to her and was like, "Hey guys, I have to quit the team. I got to go shoot this movie, and I don't know how long it's going to take." They're like, "Oh, that's a bummer." He's like, "Yeah, it's just some dumb thing in the woods about a witch." It was Mike, the guy that ends up standing in the corner in the Blair Witch Project, which funny story, true story. They all had their payment deferred. Do you know what their payment was? Each one of those 3 actors in the Blair Witch Project got 4% of the gross.
No.
That was their deferred payment. They did it for free, and their contracts were like, if we sell the movie, you get 4% of the gross. That's why you haven't seen any of them act anything again, because they won.
Yeah, they're good.
They won the lottery. That movie has made $500 million at the box office and on DVD. Loaded, man. Yeah. That's one shot. Goodbye.
That's like a Brando Superman deal or whatever. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Yeah. 4% of the gross. That's why I know that, because she was like, "Yeah, he didn't come back after that." I was like, "I bet not."
He's gone.
He's gone.
He's good. He's in Tahiti. He's in Tahiti.
Yeah, he's in Tahiti. He's on
Owns it.
Tahiti. He owns it. I got a buddy that owns 5 miles of beach, because he had a software company. He sold it. My boy Kevin Ho, and he bought 5 miles of beachfront in Vietnam, and he was like, "Yeah, it has like a hotel and stuff, and like, it's weird. Like a family comes with it." I was like, "Are you a slave owner? What are you saying?" He's like, "No, it's just the family has worked there for generations, and so part of the deal when I bought the hotel is I had to like allow them to still stay and live there and work at the hotel. I wasn't allowed to fire them." I was like, "So you do own a family?" He's like, "No." And then what he told me what he bought that 5 miles of beach for, I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I have like so much money left over from the sale. Like I don't. It was not expensive at all." I was like, "Okay, yeah." That guy owns Tahiti, Mike from Blair Witch Project.
Awesome. Well, I think, Corbin, this is a great time to transition to one of our favorite parts, which is your best
bad acting.
All right. So, Brian, you got to dig deep for this. We're going to give you a quote from a movie that I think you're going to enjoy. We thought this would be good for you. So it's in the chat. Now, I know you're on your phone. Is there a way, even if you take a look at it and just remember as much as you can.
I think I can look at the chat real quick. Yeah.
Some people have because it's a little bit of a longer quote, but take a look at it.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got that reaction. I thought this would be good for you, Brian.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great quote. It's a great quote because also of the quote that the version, the version that they do on The Simpsons, right?
No.
Yeah, I'll do that one in a minute. You give me the first. You tell me what you want to do.
Okay, so for this one, just have fun with it. Do whatever you want.
Okay.
And I love that we got a different version of it. So whenever you're ready.
Oh, do you want me to do it in accents? Do you
whatever
want me to do,
whatever you're feeling.
I'm a very good mimic, so I do impressions of lots of different people. So
do whatever you like. Whatever would be fun and you'd enjoy.
Okay.
The point is.
Here's my boy. I made a movie with this guy, and I think he's one of the funniest people on the planet, and so this will be good. In this country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the women. Matt Berry, baby.
I was wondering who that was. I love it. That's amazing.
Toast of London, season 2, second to last episode. Buried Alive is the funniest thing I've seen in the last 5 years. And we talk about improv and callbacks and like they literally call back everything. Nothing is wrong in that episode. It is perfect. It's super fun. Yeah, I made a movie with him called Angry White Man, and he's so delightful and so nice, and so I'm so glad to see him being so successful, with what we do in the shadows and all that.
Oh yes.
Unhand me, priest. Right.
Wait, what's the Simpsons version of this, Brian? Do you remember?
In America, first you get the sugar, then you get the money, then you get the women. It's where Homer has a giant pile of sugar in his backyard, and he becomes the sugar baron. He's the only one in town that has sugar, and everyone has to fight off rats and stuff. This is a great time. In this country, you got to make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power, and then when you get the power, then you get the women. But you might have to slap them around every once in a while. Right? Yeah. I did that the other day because I had to make as we all have to make character reels, and character reels are exhausting. Yeah. I love them. I love my friends who have done them, but it's like to see a 5 to 7 minute video of one person doing 5 characters in front of the same blue backdrop because somehow we've been told that that's what SNL wants, and then so we all do them. It's like, well, I'll do it, and I'll do it the way that. So it kind of works as both. Like I can't. I to think of watching more than one of those in a row was a nightmare. But then I got my new management, and they were like, "You definitely need a character reel because of all your comedy stuff." I was like, "Fine." And then I was like, "Well, I have to do this some different way." And then so I did. It's on all my social media. It's called 50 Titular Lines because it's a fun game I do with my girlfriend. We'll watch a movie, and if someone says the name of the movie as part of dialogue, I'll be in the kitchen. I'll go titular line. Yeah, it's just oh, your name is Raymond. You're not Rain Man. Titular line. So I came up with 50 fake movies, and I did it. So I did 50 characters full on, like in costume and with like different spatial effects and all that. And I did it in like under 2 minutes. And I was like, all right, if nothing else, I'm going to stand out from everyone else, especially some poor asshole that has to watch just over and over again.
It's like, oh, thank God, 2 minutes.
Buddy. Yeah. So it's all like, oh, naked tobacco road. Your Honor, this is a preliminary argument. Just like, you could call me the sweater man, like just over and over again. And so when I was coming up with that, I also had to like come up with a list of like, oh, what are all the impressions I can do? Because they asked me, and I was like, okay, well, and then like after because it's just something I've been naturally good at, and then as a kid, and then of course like all the people that we were at iOS with, like I could do Crowley, I could do Dave Hill, I could do. Josh DeBose is the favorite. Like, hey, Stacey. Shut it. So
that's hilarious.
I'm trying to think if I can put. Yeah. So at first I was going to do like
like that's a
John Oliver doing like Glengarry Glen Ross. Put that coffee down. Coffee is for closers. You know this, Carol. You know this. Right? Then like Michael Caine, like some people just want to watch their food burn, just over and over again. I think the John Malkovich one is John Malkovich needs a comic book. This is an inefficient fulfillment of my order. All those
order.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, order. Pay that man his money. And then like just weird things like Christopher Hemsworth, like his like I have a friend who's worked on a bunch of Hemsworth's movies, and he goes, that guy is super fun, and like he improvised a ton of stuff. Hemsworth takes a lot of big swings, but when it hits, like they make it into the movie because they're so good. Like so I was like, but everybody likes the other guy. Is he though? Like he's a meme, like waiting to happen. All the stuff of like him coming in to like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Yeah, like that's all him. That's all him.
I love that.
It's like he turned into a snake, and he knows I love snakes, and then he's like, it's me, and he stabbed me. Like that's all him. So
okay, but Brian, I sent it to Corbin. I mean, you got low hanging fruit here, which is why are you not doing Russell Crowe? Because I just saw a GQ interview, and with your hair down, Brian, I mean, you look seriously, you look. And he's got the same beard as you. Like you guys, I mean, that is low hanging fruit right there. I mean, that has.
Beautiful.
You're right. I mean, I'm sure it's.
It's very funny that you said that because at 3:16, 14 minutes before I sat down to talk to you guys, my friend Jeremy Schwartz said, I had to do a double take yesterday when I took the kids to see Thor, Love and Thunder. I was like, oh my God, Brian replaced Russell Crowe as Zeus.
Yes.
There's never been a single moment in my life where I have not, and I'm not complaining. People could be like, you know who you look like? You look exactly like Tiny Tim. Like it could be worse. But there's never been a moment. Like I started growing out the hair long as a goof during quarantine. Of course, my agent saw it. She's like, ooh, I love it. We're going to send you out for all these commercials for like ice road truckers. Like I've played a trucker at this point, but every single time I have thought like, okay, I passed. I shaved my beard and had my hair long, and my girlfriend was watching State of Play, which is the Ben Affleck, Russell Crowe digital movie. And at one point I just walked over and stood next to the TV, and she's like, what? I don't know. Oh my God. The best one is that when we made Bloodsucking Bastards, I kept the beard and I shaved my head to play like the mailroom boy, and I was like, aha! Now I don't. And then I shit you not, the very next day, all the billboards for Noah went up where he has a shaved head and a big white beard. Like I've never looked more like him in my life. Why I'm not his stand-in? I don't, because he's like 5'10", 5'11". I'm 6 feet. I'm like, dude, just free money. I know how to. I'll sit in with his band, 50 Odd Foot of Grunts or whatever it's called now.
Yes.
I think they changed the name, but they didn't want to change the logo. So
I was watching a GQ interview where he talks about his different projects, and I told Cora, I was like, Brian now looks identical. The beard, the hair. It's impressive. So
there's never like. It's crazy too, because also I am a dead ringer from my grandfather. Like I've seen old photos of like my grandfather's like wedding day, and I'm just like, yeah, you think I look like him? You should check out the old man, you know. But yeah, it's like, again, it's not a bad compliment.
No, not at all.
But also like, hey man, you like also like blame me. Say I threw the phone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm worth it.
Yeah.
just put me on retainer, 250 grand a year, whatever you need. Just point and say, no, it's that guy. Like, sorry, that was me.
Sorry, my bad.
That was my parking ticket. My bad. Just keep me in there.
I love that. Well, Brian, this has been amazing, man.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Corbin's always like, keep it under an hour, John, and just so much fun. Like, there's so much stuff I didn't get to talk to.
We haven't even talked about filmmaking.
Not
yet.
at all.
We haven't talked about movies.
I know
that might be part two. So
definitely.
I would love it. Yeah,
this was amazing, and I love that we deep dove into improv, and I know sure. You know, there was a lot of like lovely names that I haven't heard in a while that were wonderful to hear, and it's so cool because one of the neat things, like, I just share with people that are newer on this journey, that like Brian and I met a long time ago, and like we were like together a lot, and then kind of our paths like separated in certain ways, and then they've come and they've crossed, and it's so lovely when you see that, when you see other artists that are still doing it and teaching and performing and writing and directing, and I just think it's such a
and like we talked yesterday, like as if we had just talked to each other yesterday.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like Corbin couldn't get a word in edgewise.
yeah, you guys are true. Yeah, you guys are great buddies. I get it.
I get it, but again, that's another Matt Berry thing. If you guys have you seen Garth Marenghi's Dark Place? The first season, buddy. That is how I knew when my best friend Brian Mandel called me up. And he was like, "Hey, we're doing this movie. We want you to direct it." And yada yada. The guy that we want to play the bad guy is because they had been watching the IT Crowd, and they're like, "Oh, Matt Berry would be great for this." They're like, "Have you ever heard of Matt Berry?" I was like, "Dr. Lucian Sanchez." There's only 6 episodes. I think you can get it on Hulu or HBO Max. It's like a mockumentary about a Stephen King type called Garth Marenghi, who made his own soap opera back in the day of the 80s. It's not Richard Ayoade's in it, Matt Berry, and then the other guy who's I can't remember, but he's also in that Toast of London episode that I told you about. I was like, oh, Garth Marenghi's here. They spent, as Matt put it best to me, he goes, "We spent so much money trying to make it look like we had spent no money at all." It's like intentionally bad. The very first thing you see is a woman walk into the hospital, which is Dark Place, which is the hospital that's built on the Hellmouth, direct line to hell. She walks in, terrible wig, and she goes, "Oh, look, a cat." And there's a jump cut, and as she leans down in the jump cut of her going to pet the cat, you see someone's arms just go and put out the cat. It's like that's the very first thing you see. You go, got it, I'm in. Skipper the Eye Child. There's a great music video in there with Matt Berry and Richard Ayoade, where Richard Ayoade raps. It's called One Track Lover. I'm a one track love, because Berry considers himself a musician first and like an actor second. So that's why he has songs and all that kind of stuff. We haven't got to talk about any of that fun filmmaking and stuff like that. It's all this is how the brain works, man.
Not stop. I love it.
I love it.
It's like Brian. Dennis Miller doing Monday Night Football. Everyone listening to this is gonna have to like write down and like, what sub reference is he talking about?
We'll get there.
No, Brian, we really
what's the
appreciate
ship that's
it.
no longer a ship. Yeah.
And I do, I recommend people check out the Pack if they're interested in improv, if they're in Los Angeles, or, like you said, if Brian's traveling to, an improv festival or conference somewhere where you're at, try to get in on that panel, check it out. Brian's great, wonderful teacher.
Thank you,
amazing
sir.
improviser. No, and
if I could do a quick plug, I believe something. I've started doing a thing over the last year or so.
You should have plugged it earlier, Brian. Should have plugged it earlier. Sorry, turned off by now. No, by now they're done. This should have been done earlier. Go ahead.
Now they're done. I'm starting to travel again. So like late August, September, I'll be going. Oh boy, all over the place: Yosemite, Boston, Seattle, Portland, Spokane, and then back to Boston again, I think. But I started teaching a thing online called All Improv, which is I believe that improv should be available to everyone. So it's a small curated bespoke experience. It's not that sort of turn and burn. Here's 18 students all doing the same 3 exercises, and then hustle you out to the next level. I keep it to $100 because I want it to be affordable to people, and it's 4 weeks, 8 hours. So it's 4 weeks of 2-hour classes. And I ask them early and often, what do you want to learn in this class? What are you working on? What are you struggling with? So I've helped everyone from getting their first movie made to I want to do a bunch of improv scenes to helping one of my students. She ran a 5K in all 50 states. And so I helped her write a novel of it. I was like, we did it Armando style, where I was just like, the rest of the class is going to do scenes based off of your monologue. I'm going to give you a random state. And she did like a 2.5 minute monologue of like what she remembered about doing the one in Wyoming. I was like, there you go. a book is what, like 5 pages times 50 states is what, 250, like what, like that's a book right there. Like she was like, oh, because she had made in her mind this big daunting thing. I'm like, no, 5 pages per state times 50 states. There's your book. Her name is Kate Wood. She's known as Kate 5K or Kate 5K 50K or something like that. So I look for me on that. Find me on social media. I'm at all the normal places. Google Brian James O'Connell. You'll find me, and I try and do those now because again, I think it's about teaching the student in front of you, and it's so crazy to me that we have always talked about evolving, how the work evolves. But you're teachers. You guys know how this works. So like, we've never asked ourselves to evolve the way we teach the art form, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. So along with that, then like Camp Improv Utopia, which I'm the board of that. That's a nonprofit summer camp, adult summer camp for improvisers. The woman right now that's famous on TikTok for playing Kamala Harris, Allison Reese, she was a camper.
Oh, cool.
I started coaching her when she was, I started teaching her when she was 18 years old.
Wow.
She's great. Her spouse is fantastic. Just a great artist. So that's what I was trying to say before. Like us, a lot of names from the past on that, but like it's a small world.
Yeah.
Improv is a big world, but it's a small world. Like everybody kind of knows everybody, which is sort of how the entertainment business is as well. It's just wonderful. It's a great gift. It's given me you guys. It lets me do fun stuff like this, but it gives me also like my friends. My girlfriend's an improviser. My best friend's in Dr. God. All my brothers. Jeff Hawkins. There's another voice from the past.
Yeah, wow.
Jeff Hawkins just survived. He just had surgery for bladder cancer. He's doing great. It's like being friends with Don Rickles, who also is Charlie Brown. You know what I mean? So it's like he's super funny, but like only Hawkins. It would only happen to him. I shit you not. The doctor was like, "This is a cancer that mostly smokers get." He's like, "Never had a cigarette in my life." Really? Don't lie to me. I'm your doctor. It's important. He's like, "No, I literally have never smoked a cigarette in my life." He goes, "Huh."
Wild.
Guess you're just one of the unlucky ones. You're like, yeah, he is. He walks under a black cloud all day. But I love him. He's one of the best people on the planet. Shirt off his back. Off his back for you. Yeah.
He's a great guy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So many people, Brian. And I appreciate it. And we appreciate your time, man. This was wonderful.
Of course.
So great to deep dive, go into the weeds. And hopefully we inspired someone out there to jump into improv and check it out, whether you're scared of it, and just, give it a whirl or continue doing it. So Brian, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you guys. Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to a full episode of the Moving Spotlight podcast. You see the word full?
Yeah, you changed it up. I love it.
If you made it to this, you get a prize. I don't know what that is yet. Thanks for listening. Please rate and review us on your podcast app of choice. Also, check us out on Instagram at The Moving Spotlight. Corbin, where else can they find us?
Like and subscribe on YouTube and, Spotify, like John mentioned, or Apple Podcasts. Those are the great places for us to get reviews and likes, and we would just want to see more of you guys out there.
Yeah, and thank you for listening. Our audience is growing, and we really appreciate that. And we'll be back next week with another fun episode. Thank you for listening to the
Moving Spotlight Podcast.